Hello everyone, my name is Olivia, and today I wanted to share my favorite movies of 2023. I have this video split up into a ton of different categories, all leading up to my top 5 favorite movies of all time. So let's just get right into it because I have a lot of movies that I want to mention. So first let's start with my movie club. I have a movie club over on my Discord that anyone is free to join, which is called the Cinebun Club, where we watch one movie a month and everyone who is a part of the club is able to vote on the movie that they want to see. And this is almost a year old now, and we have seen such amazing films, and two that I wanted to mention that were absolutely fantastic were In the Mood for Love and My Neighbor Totoro. So one of the first movies that my club voted to watch was In the Mood for Love for one of our months, which was centered around Asian cinema. In the Mood for Love is set in Hong Kong in the 1960s. It follows a man and a woman who live in the same apartment building. They are both married, but when they realize that both of their spouses have had an affair with each other, they start to spend more time with each other and eventually fall in love. In the Mood for Love is probably one of the most visually stunning movies I have ever seen. It has this beautiful neon hue to it as it highlights the streets of Hong Kong. It's a movie that's quiet in its angst and eroticism, and it uses slow motion and these longing stares between these two characters that makes their lust for each other feel so deeply palpable on screen. It felt poetic and unique and distanced yourself enough from the characters that you do feel like you're looking in on something beautiful and forbidden. And In the Mood for Love is always going to be at the top of my mind whenever someone asks me what's one of the most beautiful movies you have ever seen, because the way that it was shot, the way that this movie just slowly unfolded was something completely unique of its own, and I just cannot compare it to anything else because it's so deeply beautiful in its own right. The next movie that my movie club watched was My Neighbor Totoro, and this is probably one of my new favorite Studio Ghibli movies of all time because it is also a deeply quiet and just self-contained story where it's mostly no plot, just vibes. My Neighbor Totoro follows two sisters who move to the countryside with their father, and when they move into this beautiful cottage core type of house in the middle of nowhere, they discover that Totoros live nearby. And throughout the story, these little girls interact with these creatures and they become friends with them, and I had a great time with this story. This one doesn't have a really outstanding plot like Spirited Away, which is really complex and has a lot of layers to it. This one just kind of highlights the beauty of Studio Ghibli in the way that they're able to convey the quiet nature of summertime, and it was a great movie. I highly recommend it. If you have never seen a Studio Ghibli movie before, I would recommend either My Neighbor Totoro or Kiki's Delivery Service because those are my two favorites now. Now let's move on to movies I had a great time with. They gave me what I wanted when I went to the movies, and I left the theater really happy and really pleasantly surprised. One movie that I had a great time with was The Little Mermaid. When I saw The Little Mermaid, I was having the best time ever. Halle Bailey really shines as Ariel, and the boy who plays Prince Eric, I forgot his name, he is such a handsome, perfect fit for Prince Eric, and their chemistry was palpable. I really enjoyed Halle Bailey's rendition of Part of Your World, and overall the story was just fantastic. The only thing I didn't enjoy about the movie were the additional songs that were put into the film, because you can clearly feel that it was a Lin-Manuel production. The scuttlebutt rap was deeply unnecessary and could have been edited out. Prince Eric's song was really enjoyable, but overall those songs felt so deeply Lin-Manuel Hamilton-esque, and I do think that Disney should stray from using Lin-Manuel so often in their musical movies because you can just feel the recycled beat and overtone to each of his songs. But overall, I really had a great time with that movie. I was very pleasantly surprised. Another movie that I knew I was going to enjoy was Asteroid City by Wes Anderson. It follows a really small town in the middle of nowhere in the desert called Asteroid City, and a ton of different people end up in the same location for many different reasons, and a weird occurrence happens that leaves them locked down in Asteroid City, so they're unable to leave. And this movie just really solidified Wes Anderson as a class act director for me. He has this very distinct style in each of his films. All of his sets feel deeply artificial in a way that doesn't bring you out of the film but invites you into this whimsical world that you want to visit because it feels so light and airy, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it always has these really quirky characters, and it always has this very large cast that eventually all interacts together. And each of his movies get better and better in my eyes. I really enjoy every single one that I've seen so far, and this one had me and my friends and my whole entire theater laughing and having such a great time. I cannot recommend them enough. I wouldn't necessarily say the next movie I had a great time with it. In fact, for most of the film, I was incredibly angry, but that's the whole entire point, and it is Killers of the Flower Moon. And I'm actually currently reading Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm listening to it on audiobook, and I'm almost done with it. And I do have to say that Martin Scorsese really brought this story to life. The story overall in the nonfiction is very bare bones, cut and dry, and you don't get to learn about the different Osages who were brutally murdered for their head rights, which are basically rights to the land that they own, and their land is full of oil. So slowly but surely these Osages were being killed off because people wanted to inherit their rights to this oil. And in the novel, you don't get to learn about the Osages. You don't get to spend time in their homes. You don't get to learn about them as people. And I do think that Martin Scorsese brought them to life in a way that really honored their story and honored their spirit overall. I think the way that he unfolded the story and really honed in on Molly and highlighted her experience as she lost family members around her was deeply important to the narrative of the film. And I also do think that Lily Gladstone deserves an Oscar for this film because she is just enigmatic. She is this calm force in the midst of chaos in this entire film, and her ability to control a scene and just grab everyone's attention without really doing anything. Her subtle performances in each scene were absolutely fantastic. Overall, I do have to say that this film was incredibly long. After a while, it gets a little bit much. You feel like the story could have wrapped up a lot sooner. And I was watching some interviews from the initial premiere of this film, and one member of the Osage community said that he appreciated Martin's attempts to highlight the Osage community from a perspective of a white director, but the member of the Osage said that he was upset that the movie centered primarily around Ernest Burkhart. And I do agree with that critique of the film because it somewhat felt like Martin Scorsese wanted to highlight Leonardo DiCaprio's role in this film, and he did it through really honing in his lens on Ernest Burkhart when we could have shifted that focus over to Molly, which could have made a much more compelling film. There are so many different ways that you can break down that critique. I agree with it, and I think that if we had an Osage director direct this film, it could have been even more powerful. But overall, I enjoyed the movie. I appreciate the history that it taught me, and I do think that it is a very important watch to learn more about American history that I don't think we should ever forget. The next category of my favorite movies of 2023 are movies centered around the human spirit, which are the highs and lows of life. There are so many aspects of being human that is deeply universal, and these movies explore that in very different ways. So the first movie that I really enjoyed that explored the human spirit, specifically motherhood and friendship and community, is 20th Century Women. 20th Century Women takes place during the 1970s, and it's a really interesting film because not only does it combine a specific cinematic narrative, but it also includes newsreels and moments from that time of history that are woven into the narrative, so you feel not only connected to the characters, but also the overall time period that they're in. So we follow a single mother who is raising her son, and she lives in a very big house. And because she lives in a very big house, she rents out different rooms to different roommates, and she decides to enlist the roommates to help raise her son because she wants him to be a very well-rounded good man when he eventually becomes an adult. So as the story progresses, we see this son as he interacts with the different roommates as well as his mother in this house, and he learns these varying life lessons that his mother may not necessarily agree with, and that starts the whole entire tension of the film. So this entire film is another quiet story that is deeply heartfelt. Each performance is raw and relatable, and the thing that I enjoyed the most about this film was the rejection celebration of individualism and the embracing of community, because it does take a village to raise a child. And being able to witness that love and care that so many different people have for one child in this movie was so heartfelt and so moving, because it's not something that you see that often in media, and it's a very unconventional approach to motherhood and overall life, but it's something that I wish that we would gravitate more towards in film and in life overall, because that sense of community, that sense of belonging, that chosen family is so deeply important to your overall happiness, and that is what this movie explored. It was one of the most moving films I have seen this year. It was just absolutely remarkable. Another movie that rejects the idea of a blood family and hones in on a chosen family is Driveways. Driveways is a movie following a mother and a son, and the mother drives them over to her late sister's house to clean out because her sister recently passed away. So now the mother is enlisted with not only cleaning out the house, but eventually selling it. Eventually, the son becomes friends with the neighbor of the house that they're staying in, and the neighbor is an elderly man who's pretty solitary. He doesn't really interact with a lot of different people, but eventually the son and the old man become friends, and it's a very unlikely type of friendship where they both see themselves in each other and they learn life lessons from each other. And overall, this movie is just showcasing the gentleness of the human spirit and the fact that you should reach out to people who are your neighbors. You should reach out to people who you interact with on the street. You should really open your heart to making friends and making connections in very unlikely places, because you never know when those friendships and those connections can really alter and change your life for the better. Another movie that deals with the human spirit in a way that's very unconventional compared to the other two films is Arrival. So I saw Arrival for the first time this year, and it completely moved me. It follows an expert linguist who is recruited by the army in order to communicate with aliens that have recently landed on the planet, and they don't know how to communicate with them, so they hire Amy Adams, who is the linguist, to try and communicate with these aliens to see if they are a threat or a friend. Arrival is a very unique alien invasion movie because it's not what you expect an alien invasion movie to be. Instead, it explores the beauty of humanity, and the way that this film unfolds and the way that it makes you appreciate language and how it can truly connect us as a society is absolutely superb. It is one of the most beautiful movies I have ever seen, and it's so quiet. It's so quiet, and that's what I love, because if I told you, oh, you have to watch this alien invasion movie, and I tell you to watch the movie Arrival, you're going to think there's going to be a war happening, there's going to be explosions, but it's so much more than that. It throws the idea of a traditional alien invasion movie to the side and introduces this idea of communication. It is absolutely stunning. Now, let's get into my top 5 favorite movies of 2023. Number 5 goes to Phantom Thread. Phantom Thread is the first movie that we saw in my movie club, and what a start to a movie club. Phantom Thread follows Reynolds, who is a dressmaker, and he meets this woman named Alma, who is significantly younger than him, and they form this relationship where she's essentially his muse, and they work together to create these stunning gowns, and they form this toxic, unique relationship that will shake you up and really leave you stunned by this historical fiction movie. And when I saw this with my movie club for the first time, I was blown away by not only the subtle performances from both Reynolds and Alma, but also the overall story is so twisted and dark in a way that I feel like is not really marketed when you first initially heard about this film. I wrote in my Letterboxd review that it is a story of art obsession and two hearts aching for something they'll never reach, but desperately seek out at the cost of their own happiness. What a line by me. Wow. Phantom Thread is a movie that took me completely by surprise and was just overall in every aspect, costume, lighting, acting, storyline, music, all of it was deeply beautiful. Now let's move on to my top 4th favorite movie of the year. And it's going to be a surprise, but it is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I don't rewatch movies in theaters often, but I saw Puss in Boots 3 times this year, and I think I'm genuinely on their marketing team because I was doing the work. I was going to a bunch of different parties, and I was going up to random people to ask them, have you seen Puss in Boots: Last Wish? Because it's really good. That's how much I love Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots is my first ever Puss in Boots movie because I know he's had a couple beforehand, but this one is on a different level. One, from an animation standpoint, it is beautifully textured in a way that just really appeals to my brain, and the movie is just a fun adventure for anyone of any age. You will appreciate it as a kid, as a teenager, as an adult, and it's a movie that actually has made me cry 3 times because every time I watch this movie, I fall in love with these characters all over again, and I fall in love with their relationships and the journey that they take. And yeah, Puss in Boots, guys, like, get on that. If you have not seen Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, you are genuinely missing out. Like, I'm not being sarcastic when I say it's one of the best movies I've seen this year. It's in my top 4. Like, guys, have you seen Puss in Boots: Last Wish? The next movie, top 3 of 2023, is Atonement. I actually saw Atonement, I think 2 weeks ago, and it completely changed my world. One, I read the book Atonement, and the moment that I finished Atonement, I made a trip over to my library because I knew they had the DVD of the movie and it wasn't on streaming. So I went to my library, I took out the DVD, and I watched it, and my life was changed. Atonement is directed by Joe Wright, who also directed Pride and Prejudice 2005. So if that's not a reason enough for you to go and watch this film, I don't know what is, because Joe Wright, that man can do no wrong. I mean, he did make Anna Karenina, and that was certainly a choice as a director, but Atonement. Atonement is probably one of my favorite book to movie adaptations of all time because I noticed that every single piece of dialogue in this film is identical to the dialogue in the book, and the attention to detail and the way that they stayed so true to the novel itself is something that I haven't seen a lot for book to movie adaptations because they inevitably change the dialogue. They inevitably alter their script to be something unique of its own compared to the original text. But Atonement is something that is so true to the original text in a way that is heartbreaking and devastating that I don't even want to give you the synopsis of because I genuinely think that anything that you learn about this film before going into it will spoil the entire story for you, and I think you should go into it knowing that it is a gorgeous film that will live long in your heart, that you won't stop thinking about. The cast just really brought these characters to life, and I feel like it was especially heartbreaking considering the fact that I just finished the book and immediately jumped into the movie, and having the book fresh in my mind and witnessing it come to life on a screen was something that I will never forget because it was so deeply true to the text. And Joe Wright can do no wrong. Joe Wright understands what it's like to long. Joe Wright understands what it's like to be in love, and he understands the subtleties of it and really highlights that in each of his films. He's really fantastic at bringing a romance to life, and Atonement is just a movie that I initially thought I would never see again. It's too heartbreaking, I can't watch it again, it's too much for me, but after finishing that movie, I couldn't stop thinking about the performances, the cinematography. Wow. What a film. So beautiful, so stunning. One of the most beautiful movies I have ever seen. Now we're up to my second favorite movie of 2023, and it is Oppenheimer. You hate to see a girl be basic, but guys, Oppenheimer really affected me. Oppenheimer I greatly enjoyed because before watching the film the day that it released during Barbenheimer, I watched the Oppenheimer documentary on Peacock, and I do think watching that documentary before diving into this movie is essential because it unfolds this deeper understanding of Oppenheimer's life and also a deeper understanding of this whole entire race to build the nuclear bomb in a way that makes you appreciate the film so much more. Oppenheimer is a movie that genuinely breaks the boundaries of cinema in the way that it explores such a large topic that affects every single one of us on this planet, that is done in a way that is so visually stunning, in a way that I have never seen before. It was another movie that I could not stop thinking about after I initially saw it. And Cillian Murphy, he's one of my favorite actors of all time. He is an actor who can embody so many different people and he can bring so much to the table. His range is phenomenal and his performance as Oppenheimer is enigmatic. This movie is not meant to simply entertain you, it's meant to send a message that these weapons and this ego that humans have to constantly push the barriers of nature highlights our own hubris and our own need to constantly one-up each other. And this arrogance is so deeply dangerous because at the end of the day, humans are always the downfall of humanity, and Christopher Nolan was able to explore that so wonderfully in a way that instills anxiety into you, from the music, from the pacing, from the way that he goes between the present time in that historical time when they're building the bomb to the future when they're currently doing a trial, and the way that he juxtaposes color between black and white. Every single aspect of this film is just stunning and remarkable. Yes, Oppenheimer. Second favorite movie of the year. Now let's move on to my number one favorite movie of all year. If you follow me on Instagram, which I highly implore you do, or if you follow me on Threads, you already know what's my favorite movie of the year because I've been posting about it endlessly, and it is Saltburn. Saltburn is a very polarizing film on social media. I had the best time watching Saltburn with my best friend, and I actually added it to my favorite movies of all times list on Letterboxd. So that's when you know the love is real, because Saltburn is a movie that I cannot stop thinking about. It is a hedonistic, toxic, extravagant, dark academia film that completely swept me off my feet and took me on a journey that I didn't want to get off of. If you don't know what Saltburn is about, we follow our main character Oliver, who comes from a lower class type of household, and he's attending Oxford when he befriends Felix, who's one of the most popular boys at the school, and he eventually forms this relationship with Felix and they grow closer to one another, and Felix invites Oliver to stay with him for the summer at Saltburn. And throughout the course of the entire summer, these people grow closer together and they have a summer that changes their lives forever. Saltburn, like Atonement, is one of the most visually stunning movies I've ever seen. The way that Emerald Fennell directed this movie and the cinematography and the way that she flowed each scene together was stunning. The way that this story unfolds and starts out as this dark academia, obsessive relationship between Oliver and Felix turns into this hedonistic, just overwhelming film. There are so many different moments where you're going to be shocked, where you're going to laugh at the absurdity of all these characters. And that's the whole point of Saltburn. Saltburn is a caricature of the ultra wealthy and how they're so deeply out of touch with society. And then we follow Oliver, who's this interloper in Saltburn. He doesn't belong, but he desperately wants to belong, and he'll do anything he can to make a name here in Saltburn. And it's these two different forces at war with one another, and it kind of melds together to create this explosive movie that jars you and is meant to keep you unsettled. Barry Keoghan really shines in his role as Oliver, and he shines in any role that he has in a film because he has this ability to really embody an unsettling, weird character that commands your attention. And the way that he brings Oliver to life and the way that he moves and the way that he acts is so deliberate and purposeful. And I can't wait to see him in different films in the future because his ability to have this really weird kind of energy that he brings to each movie is something that I can't get enough of. It is for the dark academia girlies. It's for the girlies who love A24 films. It is one of the best movies I've ever seen. I have no notes. It's a movie that you'll never forget either way, whether you love it or hate it. And yeah, Saltburn. #1 movie of the year. Yep. So those are my favorite movies of 2023. I feel like this was a very long video, but I hope you enjoyed watching and learning more about my favorite films that I watched this year. I hope to watch even more next year so I can continue my movie discussions on here. If you want to follow me on Letterboxd or anywhere else where I post a lot about movies, all my links will be down below, and let me know what are your top 5 favorite movies of 2023 because I would love to get some recommendations to watch in 2024. If you are not subscribed, be sure to do so to see more movie content from me in the future. I am so excited to see what movies I see in 2024 and what will become new favorite movies of all time. Only time will tell, and I will be sure to discuss it on here in the future. Thank you so much for watching this video and sticking around. Be sure to leave a like and a comment, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!